Sam, you have to give it permission to record you.
I did. I said I got it.
What if you tell it, can you tell it no?
No,
You can't tell it no?
I don't think you can. It just says you're agreeing to be recorded. It isn't like a do you agree? It's like you are agreeing. That's it.
Oh wow. Wow, how bossy Zoom
It's
is.
like all the people listening to this podcast, you are agreeing to listen to us. No,
You
I'm just
are.
kidding.
You have made a blood pact. Speaking of blood, this is October the 25th,
I know.
2023. Sam and I are living Halloween costume characters now.
We are. We are. Oh my gosh, I do have my name badge somewhere around here too.
Oh
It's
yeah,
hanging
yeah.
up in my office.
Yeah, for those of you not aware, I was in Halloween City here in Athens a couple weeks ago, and one of the Halloween costumes that you could be, along with the walking taco or anybody else, other types of food, the walking pizza, other mythical creatures, characters such as a pirate or a bank robber. You can be a Blockbuster video clerk.
Oh my
And
God. Does it come with the really bad khaki pants that are like
no,
waxy and horrible and weird? Because back in the 90s, there were like no good khaki pants unless you shopped at the Gap, and who had money to shop at the Gap? And
not
yeah,
Blockbuster workers, that's for sure.
no.
And if you've never heard this show before, that is how Sam and I met back in 1995,
Yeah.
94,
Yeah.
95, somewhere
95.
around there. Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
And so the Blockbuster costume, I have my original name tag where it was the because went to the lanyards at some point,
Oh yeah.
but I had the plastic Blockbuster
Yes.
ticket with my name that had the Brother P Touch printout
Yes.
thing.
Mine says, the one that I keep around is the one that I made when you and I worked together, and it says Space Cadet as my name.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love changing the name on the lanyard. By the at one point it was just Jim.
I love it.
Yeah,
Jim.
because it's like Jim told me this movie was good. We don't have a Jim that works here, man. But the shirt has the yellow collar.
Oh my God.
Okay, so my shirt was just the blue,
Mm.
and at some point we went to darker blue. But yellow collar meant what? Store manager or assistant manager?
I don't know. Mine had a yellow collar, but I don't know what the yellow collar meant. It probably was some weird hierarchy thing. Do you
Because
remember before the polos though, when we had to wear like a light blue Oxford with a
with a
tie?
tie, yes. That was
Yeah.
managers, though, I think,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that was me though. I had to wear one of those.
Yeah, me too. Did not own a tie. And so my very first credit card that I ever opened for myself was a Sears card. And this was my dad's idea, because I didn't have a credit card. I was like 17, 18, something like that. And so I went over to Sears, started a card, and bought ties on it for Blockbuster. And that was my first, credit card.
Mm.
It was, but yeah, how do you feel about being a Halloween costume?
Um,
I mean,
I'm okay with it. Does that make me cool?
well, this is what I'm wondering because we're kind of now the generation after us as kind of are the people that went to Blockbuster when they were little
Hmm.
or younger, so it's a memory that they have.
Yeah.
And the idea of working at a video store and being a video store clerk, I think, was considered a cool job by some people. And so working at Blockbuster, while that was the corporate, stiff, goofy, and as we both know, reprehensible business practices at times,
Yeah.
um, and really short-sighted and all these other things. So a lot of people brings back wonderful early memories and things like that.
Yep.
And so to be a Blockbuster clerk, I guess is something that would be funny. Blockbuster, make it a Blockbuster night. Wow, what a difference. By Grabthar's hammer. What a difference.
Have you pre-ordered your copy of Titanic yet?
My God. We had to answer the phone. Sam and I did a podcast about Blockbuster a long time ago, so we'll leave this alone fairly soon. But yeah, when we were pre-ordering Toy Story on VHS, we were trying to really sell those to people. You
Hmm.
answered the phone offering them to pre-order Toy Story. So you go through this whole spiel. Thank you for calling Blockbuster at insert location. This is Andrew. Or wait, no. The pre-order thing came after the location. Thank you for calling Blockbuster Video at insert location where you can pre-order your copy of Toy Story for $14.99. This is Andrew. How may I help you? Sorry, wrong number.
Yeah. I don't think I ever had a sale that way. Not once.
Well, it was dumb. I mean, my why I was fired in the end after a couple of years working there was for not saying hello when someone walked in the door. It happened to have been like one of the secret managers that comes in, you know, and
So ridiculous.
that was how my career got employee of the month 6 times, but don't say hello once and you're toast. Anyway, um, so the thing about Blockbuster clerks is they were able to talk to you about movies, recommend things to you, tell you what they thought of certain films. Same thing with any other chain. But now, who's going to tell you things about movies and what they were like? Not Redbox. There's no little robot inside there.
No.
And not Netflix. They just got the little description.
Yep.
Nope. So you're left to look at what Rotten Tomato reviews or things people say on social media.
Yeah. Or if you subscribe to like Letterboxd or something, maybe you identify with somebody's interests and tastes and you can find good recommendations that way. But certainly is harder.
Nothing beats just listening to a video store clerk yammer about
Yeah.
a movie. So
Yeah.
that's what we do. That's where we come in. Still doing the thing after all this time. Um, so this is for October. So we're going to talk about things we saw in September and October. I'm keeping all of mine spooky because I'm the big horror fan here. Um, but you want to go first? You want to talk about Strays?
I will. So my first movie is the movie Strays, which has very few humans in it. It stars some adorable little dogs voiced by Will Ferrell and Ilsa Fisher, Jamie Foxx. And basically, if you've seen the trailer for this, you know the premise. There's this horrible human being who has a dog. He doesn't like the dog. And so he plays this game of fetch with the dog where he takes the dog really far away, throws the ball, and the dog brings the ball back to his house, even if it's miles and miles and miles. So he decides to take him into the city, a very far journey, and throw the ball. And now he's got to find his way home. And he meets some other dogs along the way, other strays, who teach him the ways of the little doggy world and how humans really should be towards their doggies. And I thought this movie was really funny. So this is one of those films where um I laughed really hard. There are poop and pee jokes and fart jokes and just ridiculous humor that I love.
Hmm.
And then in the next scene, I'm crying because I love little dogs.
Hmm.
And so I think I like ran the gamut of emotions in this film where I'm like crying because I'm like, how can somebody be this horrible to a dog? No dogs like get hurt or anything like that.
That was my
So
question because I know it's rated R, which I assumed was just for language.
absolutely for language. It is dirty and gross. And yes, that is what it is. Um, so yeah, so no dogs get hurt. but I'm crying because I have feelings about, like, I cried in the last Guardians of the Galaxy movie because of the animals. So, like,
Everybody did, I think. That was
right.
really
So you might cry a little, but you will totally turn it around and be erupting with laughter. And, I'm not a big fan of the Ted movies, and I think that that's kind of the same director or writer, somebody
I
that
don't
was
like the
involved with
Teds either.
this.
That's the one with Marky Mark and the talking bear.
Yes. Yes. Not a fan of those. But I really liked this. And I think part of it is just the actors that were doing the voices are very comedic people that I like in movies regularly. So the delivery and of the lines and everything just seemed to like be timed perfect and really well done. And I like poop jokes and stuff like that. And
Same.
so I really just enjoyed it and I thought it was fun. And it wasn't too long. Like they didn't try to make some like 2.5 hour movie about a dog trying to get home.
Good.
It was just like, a nice little, I think it's like maybe around 90 minutes. Um, yeah, it just was a good kind of fun movie. And so I really enjoyed it.
So let me ask you, it's rated R, and I did assume it's for language because in the trailers it was like bleep 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 when they're
Yes.
talking. But my question is, you're saying it's mostly like bathroom humor and stuff related to that. Well, my kid is 10, and a lot of kids are going to want to watch this who are around that age, that preteen age, because it's naughty. And so
Hmm.
if they're just hearing bad language, but they're not seeing anything violent, what about like sex jokes that will go like completely over their heads? Is there a lot of that?
There are definitely sex jokes. So I don't know at that age how much it would go over their head or how much they would really get.
Yeah,
So that would be the only thing that I would say.
but there's a lot
Maybe
of that.
pre-screen it. I wouldn't say it's as much as like the pee and poop jokes and stuff like that. There's also a drug scene.
Oh,
So like,
that was in the trailer. That's
yep.
innocuous to me because they're not gonna get.
But it's a little more intense than what you see in the trailer. So I'm just gonna say that. So I would say maybe pre-screen it.
Okay, yeah, because my kids saw the trailer and immediately wanted to see it, and I was just like, well, it's rated R, and that means a dog could explode or anything. You know what I mean?
There's no dog that explodes, but there is, I don't want to give it away, but
Okay,
there is something that is kind of maybe a little gross and disturbing. So
all right. Well, I'll if I have to screen a movie, that means I have to watch it twice. But if it's as good as you say, then it won't matter.
yeah, I really thought it was fun.
Okay, I guess I will talk about a pet related movie as well. One of the movies I watched in October is called Pet Cemetery Bloodlines. This is a prequel to Pet Cemetery. How much do you remember about the Pet Cemetery story? It was
Oh, a lot.
okay. So at the part where the child is dead in Pet Cemetery and the dad is thinking of burying it in the Pet Cemetery and having it come back to life, the old man, Judd Crandall,
Mhm.
says, don't do that. It's bad. And here's why, because it happened to a father that I knew or a kid that I knew that came back from the war or and dead, and the father buried him and he came back to life, and it was really horrible. So there's a little mini story that gets told in the Pet Cemetery as a warning. Well, Pet Cemetery Bloodlines is that story. It's about David Duchovny plays the dad whose son comes back, who dies, I guess, in Vietnam, and he buries him in the Pet Cemetery, and that kid comes back and just it's terrible. So you get to see all the things that you get to see why, because there's a young Judd Crandall in the movie. He's this kid that went to war as a friend of his,
Wow.
and they
That's
all
cool.
idolize him. Yeah, so it's really yeah, and Pam Greer's in it. Also,
Oh,
Duchovny's
nice.
not in it as much, but it's mostly a young cast, which horror movies love to have. Um, but I loved seeing the story dramatized like that. Um, if you see a Pet Cemetery movie, you know you're gonna see like dead animals and stuff. This doesn't really like lean in badly. And you can always go to doesthedogdie.com to read the details if you really want to know. Just know that some things could be spoiled for you. But this was came out directly to Paramount Plus, I think it was. So people think direct to streaming now the same the way they think is direct to video means it's not going to be good enough to be in the theater.
Oh, no.
Um, but I thought, yeah, I thought it was good. It is a sequel or a prequel to the remake of Pet Cemetery. It came out a couple of years ago. And the reason why they did that is because that movie took place in modern times. So this movie would take place in Vietnam era, whereas I believe in Pet Cemetery it was something like World War II, maybe.
Hmm.
So you get to see a movie set in like the 1960s. So it's a period piece, but it's really good acting, some really solidly scary stuff, and Pamela Suzette Greer. But I don't think it's terrible at all. I actually really was intrigued by it. I would have enjoyed it even if I'd paid to see it in the theater. Yeah. So yeah, Pet Cemetery Bloodlines. If you have one of those streaming services, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth watching.
I'll have to check that one out because I did love Pet Cemetery growing up. I liked the book and I liked the movie. So,
Yeah, I'm waiting for them to do because in the remake of Pet Cemetery, what they expanded upon was the wife's character. And so that whole story about that sister that she had
yes.
in the bed, like that, they play way more of that. You get to see way more of that story in the remake than you do in that old one from
Hmm.
the Mary Lambert version. And so I'm waiting for them to just make a movie of that next.
That would be cool.
They would.
Well, my next movie is The Creator. And this is a sci-fi movie with John David Washington. And it is about AI and kind of set, well, it's set in the future, and there is kind of a war between the humans and AI has grown into being wanting to be recognized as like almost a race, um, and given certain rights and things like that. And humans are like, no, you guys are dangerous, you're unpredictable, and you're not human. So no. Um, and so John David Washington's character is I don't want to give too much away, but
Mhm.
it's sort of caught in the middle between the two sides and has feelings about, you know, has feelings about how things should be based on past experiences, and then is confronted with like the shock of maybe I had it all wrong. And so
Ah,
we kind of know this story from other movies and things like that. And so we watch this journey of him, you know, working through that plot line and experiencing all these different things. And it is very much more sci-fi than it is action. There certainly are some action sequences, but it is a lot more sci-fi. It's directed by the same director that did Rogue One,
yeah,
which
yeah. Colin
I love.
Trevorrow.
Yes. And it does have that like very kind of dystopian future. Like some things are very recognizable and some things are like very much like, wait, what is it? So you can tell that it's the future and there's a lot of technology and things like that. Allison Janney is in it. And I absolutely love her as an actress. I think in the past few years, she's done some amazing stuff. She plays like a military commander
Ooh.
in this film.
Oh, I can see
Like
her doing that. That's great.
she is like hardcore, straight up, like, let's get this mission done. Let's get this stuff tightened up. Let's do this, that, the other. I'm going to make it happen. And it's amazing to watch her in this film. She almost steals every scene. Except John David Washington's really great too. So I really liked this film. The CG is minimal, but done so well. The sets and the just kind of like grandeur of all the scenes is absolutely beautiful. So if you think about like in Rogue One, just especially towards the end, some
Yeah.
of those scenes in the last kind of fight on the beach
Mhm.
and everything else, it has kind of that beauty to it. And it just really is it's a really well told good story. Um, and yeah, if you can't look around the world today and see what's going on and see how it totally ties into this movie, um, yeah, it really does. And so I recommend it. If you didn't catch it in theaters, definitely catch it at home when it gets released. But it was great.
Yeah, the only reason I didn't see it in theaters is because by that time I was in full I only want to see horror movies mode. I
Mhm.
do like Colin Trevorrow. I've been following his career since he was doing that indie sci-fi with the great spaceship at the end or whatever it was. Then he did those Jurassic World movies that I didn't enjoy, and I was like, oh, Colin Trevorrow. And the Star Wars Rogue One was so good. I'm like, when are you going to either do another Star Wars or do something that's more along the lines of what where you started from, which was bringing that indie sensibility just with a bigger budget. And I was glad to see that Creator was something that he did, and it looked cool. Another reason I didn't go is because uh, I really like John David Washington, and I like the idea of a major release sci-fi movie being led by a black actor, but I don't want to see him die. And I haven't, I don't know one way or the other if he does, but there's no way I was gonna want to see that happen. I didn't want to give it the chance. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So when I'm in the mood to watch a movie where I know that that's possible, because I know how that Hollywood likes to do, um, they call it the self-sacrificial Negro or the magic Negro or whatever, but he is the lead. So we'll see. But I'm happy to know I knew the effects would be great. I I know I'll wish I saw it on the big screen just for the effects because I know that they look great. Um Speaking of the big screen, the only big screen movie on my list, all of these other stuff I saw on streaming. No, one of them I saw in a critic's preview, but it wasn't a wide release movie. So I'm going to talk about Exorcist Believer. Speaking of black leads, um, so Exorcist Believer is the first part of a trilogy of Exorcist sequels from Blumhouse, the company that made those the trilogy of Halloween sequels. So what Blumhouse is doing is it's taken the original movie, ignoring the sequels that were made over the years, and making direct follow-ups. And the direct follow-ups involve cast members from the original films, they involve character names and events from the original film, and they just carry on in a more dramatic fashion. And so Exorcist Believer, if you're familiar with the Exorcist original from 74, this is the one where the woman who's played Reagan's mom comes back. And there are that was a selling point of the movie, but I the movie is better than that, and I don't think needed it necessarily. It is about parents whose children go missing from school one day and don't come back, and when they do come back, they're possessed by the old devil. So
Hmm.
they do recruit. Is her name Ellen Burstyn? I can't. I don't. I hope I'm not saying the wrong name, but anyways, all I know about her is she got hurt on the set of the original because William Friedkin was a maniac.
Hmm.
I think she had permanent back injury from the part where Reagan throws her across the room and she hits. It might even be in the movie, her actually getting hurt and screaming. Her reaction was real. But everybody was safe in Exorcist Believer shot in Savannah. Um, I really loved all of the possession stuff with the kids, the way it was shot, the way they did the voices, it all with the makeups and the sounds and all of that. I think the scariest thing about The Exorcist is the audio, not necessarily the music, which they also bring back, but just the sounds. If you turn off the lights and just listen to the audio of The Exorcist, you will have a terrifying experience. And so, Exorcist Believer, I noticed right away did the same thing with sound, and it's not getting the credit for that. It's not getting very much credit at all. The reviews are not good. Um, but I love the fact that it was led by black characters, the father and the daughter, and the white family is kind of secondary to that. And in that regard, I have to mention the movie Abby from 1974, which was the Black Exorcist movie starring the late great William Marshall, who is most best known as Blackula. He played an exorcist, and Carol Speed, who I think passed away this year or last year, played the lead character of a church-going woman who's then possessed by a demon. And Warner Brothers sued them and basically destroyed the movie because uh, it actually was really popular. It started to make a lot more money than they thought an Exorcist ripoff would, because there were many that were made, but they tore after it, and now you cannot find a copy that looks good. It's all VHS rips. They look terrible. There's no
Huh.
restoration coming. There's no print to be found that anyone knows of. And so unfortunately, so it was a nice kind of bittersweet justice for Abby to see a black girl and a black family dealing with uh, demonic possession in a major movie, given that what Warner Brothers did to Abby back in the day. So it's on streaming now. You can rent it, but and I would say if you've got a good sound system or even headphones, give that a
Mm,
try, because yeah, those edits where it goes quiet to something loud or just a really kind of a cacophony. It's a movie you'll want to, hopefully, if you're not a jerk, um, kind of frame by frame some things and pick apart and back up things. I think there will be a new appreciation for it. What I don't think is going to happen necessarily, because $400 million were paid for the rights
whoa.
by this whatever new company is producing them. Um, it didn't make very much in theaters.
Hmm.
They were going to release a trilogy to theaters, but I hope they make all three, but I would expect the others to go direct to streaming.
Hmm. It looked, I mean, I thought the trailer looked good. And so it was interesting to me. I'm
Yeah,
also a sucker for a really good sound effects film. Like Event Horizon is still one of my favorites, just to listen to all the sound editing of
yeah,
that film and it's creepy.
it's a great
So,
headphones movie. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I yeah, I think a lot of the people horrors online fan base are a lot of white guys my age, and they get angry whenever people put women or people of color in the front seat of horror franchises.
Hmm.
So they were just at peak racism, I think, for this one, and didn't support it. But also, Exorcist is different from those slasher sequels. The
Yeah,
audience is different for those, and I think they were wrong to expect people to come out in droves the way they did. Now, had they gone and made a new Elm Street, I think they would have seen a different result.
right. Hmm. Well, my next thing is actually a TV show. And yes, I'm behind the times because I realized that this TV show came out in 2021. It's Only Murders in the Building. And I picked it up probably at the beginning of October, and I'm already through season 1 and 2 and like a couple episodes into season 3. So I have been binging it pretty consistently. Um, Now I am of an age where I grew up with Steve Martin and Martin Short. Um, their films, them on sketch comedy, like I remember all of that. Ed Grimley is like one of my favorites. Ridiculousness. I don't know why. I
Mhm.
loved that as a kid, but I did. And so seeing them do something in their later years like this is really interesting. I wasn't sure that I was going to like it, which I think is probably why I didn't pick it up right when it came out. And I don't know that I had feelings either way about Selena Gomez, who is the younger actor in the show to kind of balance the two older people and try to have it be more cross generational in terms of appeal.
Yeah.
But I also do like a really good whodunit TV show or movie or anything like that.
Mhm.
And so when I first started watching the first couple episodes, I'm like, oh, I can't put this down. Like, I want to know. And the banter between Steve Martin and Martin Short is just so perfect. It comes with 40 years of comedic timing between the two because they've worked with each other for so long. But it just is so good. And with Steve Martin being part of the creator and helping develop it, I mean, you can see him in it and his kind of knowledge of Martin Short and writing a character for him and what that looks like. It just is really kind of fun. It is completely wholesome. Like there's barely any bad words in it. But it's just very well done. And it is one of those where you think you know, and then you don't. And even if you're not guessing the same person who did it as them, you still might not get it right until the very end. The whole premise is they live in this building and a murder happens, and the three of them happen to be really into those murder podcasts that are really popular, which I don't listen to. So I'm just like, okay, I don't understand that fascination, but cool. I know lots of people that like that stuff.
Yeah, no, it's a white lady thing, I think in the majority is. So you're definitely an odd one out for that.
Yeah. And then because they're into that, they decide for their little hobby that they're going to try to figure out who murdered the person in the building. And Martin Short's character is an old Broadway director who's needs some cash, so he decides to turn it into a podcast. And they basically are podcasting along as they're trying to solve these murders. So I thought it was really fun. There's some really interesting cameos, like Sting is in season 1. He plays himself
Oh,
as
okay.
a murder suspect because he just happens to live in the building. Amy Schumer is a cameo in season 2. Um, so yeah, just really interesting. All of the characters though are so well written, like the building tenants. And while I've never lived in New York, we all kind of have from film and TV like this vision of like what it's like to live in a New York building and kind of the
Sure.
melting pot of different personalities and everything. And the characters are so like spot on as to what you would think would be in that building. So yeah, I really like it. I think it's a lot of fun. And so I'm sad it took me this long to watch it.
Mm. Yeah, we most shows that are new that have any a remote kind of appeal, I will always watch the first episode. And I don't think I realized that Steve Martin and or Martin Short were involved in the writing of the show, but that makes sense. But Selena Gomez, I became a fan instantly. Wasn't super familiar with them, but they were great when they hosted Saturday Night Live. And of course, Steve Martin and Martin Short obviously showed up with a long history with that show. But I think
Yeah.
she is great. I would watch a show. Nah, I don't watch any show, but you know what I'm saying, other than Saturday Night Live. But I would,
Yeah.
if the comedy movie or any sort of movie came out where she was in it, I would probably watch. I became a fan. Too.
Yeah.
Um,
Season 3 has a Paul Rudd. So just like what? And Meryl Streep. So it's just yeah,
I'm glad it's been a success because
it's
those
interesting.
guys have a long history with comedy, and you don't tend to hear, things about them that make them out to be these horrid folks the way some of the other people kind of turned out to be. Talking about
Mm-hmm.
Bill Murray and Chevy Chase and some of these other SNL guys. Let's see. Um, so we're gonna talk about Satan Wants You. This is probably the
Ooh.
newest movie that I've watched. This is a documentary. Um, so Sam and I both were kids in the 80s, and so we grew up in an era of moral panic which is
Yes.
popularized by the term satanic panic, which was this whole movement of religious conservatives who started calling absolutely everything in pop culture evil and demonic, and popularized the idea of devil worshippers and Satan worshippers everywhere, and identified that with anything from horror film and Dungeons and Dragons to heavy metal music and horror novels. And so I got called devil worshiper at school all the time because I was into, other than the tabletop gaming, I was into all of that other stuff. Uh,
Sure.
Even if you were drawing scary things or anything remotely into it, they would say, "Oh, you worship the devil." Where did this idea come from? Well, that's what this documentary explores. I recently read this book about how Go Ask Alice was made. Are you familiar with the book Go Ask Alice?
No.
Okay, so it was a little bit before us, but I had a girlfriend that was really into it, and she made me read it. But it was a fake diary
Hmm.
about a girl who gets wigged out on drugs and her life is destroyed. And so it was sort of like some anti-drug propaganda that was published to be a by anonymous, but was really written by this woman named Beatrice Sparks, I think was her name. I can't remember, but it was all fake. But you know what the big story is? This drug freak out thing is the popular thing. When they debunk it, it's a much smaller story. So in Satan Wants You, or Satan, yeah, Satan Wants You, this is about another hoax book that was called Michelle Remembers. And Michelle Remembers is the account of a woman who, through therapy, realizes that when she was a kid, her family gave her away to a satanic cult who like killed babies and made her eat them and all this like really gruesome, horrible things that the normal mind would never think of. And yet here it is. And the book comes out, and all of a sudden it's satanic this, devil worship that. And Go Ask Alice author made a book called Jay's Journal, where she got someone to give her a real journal of a poor teenager that died by suicide, and then changed it all to make him have this like satanic horrible thing, blaspheme the whole family, drag them, and it was just an awful experience and an awful way for someone's death to be exploited. And so that book is also sometimes credited as being a spark for the satanic panic, but this documentary shows, it interviews the woman's family and friends. The woman didn't want to be interviewed. That was this account was supposedly hers. But unlike the Beatrice Sparks books, where they had a ghost author that was pretending these journals were real, this person actually like went on TV talk shows with the therapist and all of that, and just talking about this ordeal. And you just think of all these gross, horrible things, and then it shows how other people started coming forward and say their parents were Satanists and
Oh
they ate
God.
barbecued babies too. And at no point is everyone going like, this is preposterous, because we're supposed to believe people who have been abused. I mean,
Right.
that's the rule. Believe people. You want to empower them when they've been having their power taken away. And so you don't want to hear a story like this and go, well, that's garbage. But it was garbage. And it turned out that there was more to things with her therapist, and it gets really into like the truth of what was going on. And wow, is it like can't stop watching it kind of thing. So this is not true crime.
Hmm.
It's more of just like drawing parallels between the moral panic of days gone by and the moral panic of now,
Hmm.
where the loudest voice and the most like scandalous voice is the voice everyone hears, and the voice of reason is either immediately disbelieved, crushed, suppressed, or just not that interested. So,
Right.
yeah, a great show to watch. Very fascinating. It's not a show; it's a documentary film. But this was a streaming rental. Satan Wants You is the name, and so yeah, it's fascinating stuff. I considered it related enough to spooky things to include it, because when they play the tapes of the woman making all these horrible confessions, in therapy. It's horrible to hear, and
Hmm.
they play the tape, so it like, yeah, I mean, it's enough to curl your toes.
Hmm.
But anyway, so that's I didn't cheat on you, October. I I still consider it watching horror.
Interesting. It sounds really cool. Yeah, I remember those days.
Welcome back.
Yeah. My next film is a movie I picked when I had like a free night to myself to like watch anything, and I couldn't decide what I was in the mood for, and I didn't want anything too heavy, which is typically what I pick because I typically pick like a black comedy or something that just crushes your soul.
Right.
Those are my jams, and I'm like, okay, stay away from those. Stay away from those. I don't want that tonight. Um, yeah, and so I picked Love at First Sight, which is a direct to Netflix movie, because I never had heard of it, so I'm fairly certain it just came out directly to
It
Netflix.
did,
Okay.
but
Okay.
I don't know anything about it.
And this is a romantic comedy. And so I was sort of in the mood because I feel like in the past few years, romantic comedies have been few and far between.
Yes.
And it just isn't a genre that's like holding steady or is just not in fad or whatever right now. And
Mhm.
that's fine. But I wanted one, and so I'm like, let's check it out. So the premise is this girl um happens to meet this guy by fate on an airplane, and they sort of hit it off, and then at the end of the plane ride are destined to go their separate ways, and just how choices in your own life and fate a little bit sort of have a way of just making things happen that should happen. Um, I so from the very first opening scene, there is a voiceover. It's neither of the characters, it's actually this actor who pops up as different characters throughout the movie,
Mm.
which I'm not giving too much away, but you basically would relate them to being fate.
Okay.
Like they're a flight attendant in one scene, and then the like, somebody at an airport in another scene, and anyway. So they're different characters, and they're narrating kind of the story of these two meeting. And at the very first thing, like it just has the two actors standing there because it's a little introduction about them and their lives, the characters' lives. And one is American, the other is British. And so like they even down to the detail of like height in meters and height in like feet. And so like just I don't know. I'm geeky like that. And so like data being realistic to the country of origin, I was like, oh, how
Okay.
cute and funny. Um, so like I loved it. And I was hooked. So I was like, I'm watching this whole thing. I thought it was really adorable. And there's some great plot twists that you don't necessarily see coming, which is always wonderful for a rom-com because you don't want it to be so formulaic that you're like, oh, I know what's happening next.
Sure.
Oh, I know what's happening next.
Yeah.
And the actors, I'd never heard of either of them before. They were both really good. Um, there is one actor in there who I recognized from being like in Bridget Jones' Diary as one of Bridget's friends. So she plays a mother in this one, and I absolutely loved her. So I thought it was really good film. And I mean, it's sort of one of those things that you believe in life that things happen the way they're supposed to happen, even if at the moment you don't understand why it's happening that way or don't even like it. Um, yeah, you probably would like this film. So I thought it was cute.
Is there
There you go.
anyone in it that I would recognize, or
Um,
more based
I
on the
don't know.
story than the cast? Okay. Well, if you didn't,
Yes, the girl's dad is played by actor Rob Delaney, and you would probably recognize him from some other
okay.
comedy films, but he's not like a big name. He'd be more of a like a guy that's in that thing.
Okay, yeah. Okay, well that's interesting. I saw it and I am often in the mood when it's not October to see romantic comedies. There have been some really good ones made. No Hard Feelings, which we've talked about on the show before. I've
Mhm,
watched that a few times. I
mhm.
really enjoyed that one. That's a That's a great one. And
Yeah.
while not a romantic comedy, one of my other recent podcast episodes is about the movie Bottoms, which is one of the funniest movies I have seen in years. That is a new cult classic for me. Um, let's see. Well, I can change gears completely because, like I said, this is all going to be horror stuff from me. Um, one of the scariest movies I've seen in quite a while, and that's a big statement considering I'm a big fan of the film Talk to Me, which I previously considered the scariest movie of the year, but now it is neck and neck with When Evil Lurks. This is one that did have a brief theatrical window. It's from Argentina. It's by the director of the movie Terrified, not to be confused with Terrifier, or what I call the popular slasher franchise that really hates women. Terrified is from Argentina, and When Evil Lurks also from Argentina, both in Spanish language. Terrified was recommended to me by my friend Dusty Gannon, who is the lead singer of a band called Vision Video here from Athens, but he's mostly known as Goth Dad on social media. Dusty said I should check it out and named it as one of his current 5 favorite horror movies, and he's a real dyed in the wool horror movie fan. So I checked it out, and it had some really, really scary kind of possession stuff and some really brutally violent set pieces and just things that really kind of are, leave an impression long after you see them. When Evil Lurks is that times 100. It is about a small country village where a possession is going around like a zombie plague.
Oh
And so
gosh.
you can't touch the people that are possessed, otherwise it happens to you as well. You immediately become like murderous and gross. And the way that people have to dispatch you is gnarly, and the way that you look is gnarly. And so fans of zombie movies will enjoy this, but also fans of possession movies will enjoy this. Fans of foreign language horror will also enjoy this, but anyone that just wants to see something brutally violent, frightening, and screwed up, like, this is a dark, dark movie. Uh, I have some friends who are just like, I like horror, but I really want it to dig in its heels and mess me up. That's what they're looking for when they watch a horror movie. When Evil Lurks is the movie for you. I'm not going to go into extreme detail about it because I think the less you know, the better. I knew nothing about it. I don't think I even knew it was the same director as Terrified when I first watched it, but I saw this at Cine on a critic's preview, and so it was the middle of the night, and we were the projectionist and I were both really shaken by it, and it's
Hmm.
rough stuff. And so, yeah, if that's the kind of horror movie that you like to watch because you consider yourself like a bit unshakable, and you can figure plots out, and the formula of the slasher or the supernatural horror is something you're kind of, paint by numbers for you. um give When Evil Lurks a try. If it is not already on streaming, I expect it to come there pretty soon. But if they made an English language version of this, I think they would soften it. They would have to. It's
Hmm.
just it's like those great, really brutal foreign horror movies that we got in the early 2000s where you felt so
Hmm.
unsafe. Your
Like Inside.
Yeah, your familiar actors weren't there, your
Yeah.
familiar editing paces weren't there, and so you're just like, oh god, they did that, they'll do anything. There's some deeply frightening things in there, so I recommend that's one of the best horror movies definitely I've seen this year. But it's neck and neck with Talk to Me.
Hmm. Well, my last movie is appropriate for the season. This is a 1998 film, so we're going way back to the Blockbuster days.
Yeah.
Uh, this is Practical Magic. Um, this stars Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman, and then two of my absolute favorites of all time, Stockard Channing and Diane Wiest. Um, Amazing actress, goddesses, whatever you want to call them. They're just awesome. Um, I am going to give everything away because this movie is so old, and if you haven't seen it, shame on you. But
Or they can always
uh,
just pause this, watch it, and come back.
yeah, there you go. Um, movie is about these girls who grow up in a town that is kind of born around witches and witch history, and they belong to the lineage of women in the past who were burned at the stake for being witches and all of that. And so they are witches and part of a witch family. And it really kind of goes through a little bit of their childhood, but them growing up and the bond of these two sisters and their relationship with their aunts because their mother left them when they were little to live with their aunts. And yes, there's some romance in it, but this film is just so good. So like Sandra Bullock is one of the like best comedic actresses. I don't know. I loved her in
I
like
agree.
Lost City, like everything
I
that
love
she's
her.
been in.
Absolutely,
She
yes.
just is really good at comedy. And so she's absolutely funny in this film too. Nicole Kidman, it's definitely a different role than like most of the things that she does. It feels like she sort of gets a chance to like let loose and just sort of be like silly, goofy, and like dark and mysterious all at the same time. Stockard Channing and Diane Wiest are like the old women that I aspire to be
Hmm.
someday. They just are like very honest, um, very smart, very just the conversations between them are just amazing. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's just a really a good film and it actually holds up. And that's kind of one of the things that I get stuck on when I watch some of the older films um, from a long time ago is does it hold up? And it is very female focused, female forward, female empowerment. So we talk about this movie being 25 years old at this point, and still very relevant to where we're going today with feminism. So it holds up in that regard. Is there some romance? Yes. Is it germane to the story? I don't know. It feels like a weird side. It feels like a side plot that makes sense, but it's not like that. That the whole plot point like hinges on there being any type of romance in the film. I think it's just funny and spooky and a lot of fun for the holiday season. I also like Griffin Dunn a lot as a director. Um, and he did this film, so yeah.
Gonna say I couldn't remember who the director was, but yeah, Griffin Dunn did another one I liked around the same time called Addicted to Love with Matthew
Mm-hmm.
Broderick and Meg Ryan. It's one of my favorite,
Oh, it's
might
so
be my
good.
favorite of all of Meg Ryan's performances is in Addicted to Love. Um, you're a witch girl. Now you gone too far. Yeah, Practical Magic for me, I see it as the pumpkin spice latte of films. It's
Yeah.
a chunky sweater that comes to your fingers. It's a cinnamon spice broom in the corner. It's just, it's a messy bun on a crisp morning. I don't know. It's just all those things. Um,
Yes.
my last movie and one of my absolute favorite things I've watched this year is a lot of people talked about this movie Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey because Winnie the Pooh's in public domain, so they made this horror movie of Winnie the Pooh. I don't care. Cocaine Bear. Now that's a horror movie bear that I can absolutely get behind. This movie is called Slaughterhouse, as in a killer sloth. Now, what do we know about the sloth? Well, those of us who are fans of oh gosh, it's just on the edge of my brain now. The Disney cartoon that had the animals that were police, and they had the sloth that worked at the DMV, and
Oh yeah. I
was
don't
like
remember
super
what it
slow.
was.
What we mostly know about the sloth is it's slow. So
Yes.
immediately go, really? How fast could this sloth be to murder a bunch of sorority girls?
Hmm.
The plot of the movie is that it takes place in a sorority where the president the race for sorority president is unchallenged by the popular girl's gonna win, the snooty, obnoxious, mean girl's gonna win, but the newcomer decides that if she has an exotic pet, then she might get a foot in the door to be president too. Her exotic pet comes from a guy who got this sloth, but doesn't realize that the medication that keeps it from being a psychotic monster, he accidentally left that in Peru or wherever he got it from.
Oh,
So,
convenient.
yeah, she adopts it and soon discovers that it is unhinged.
Oh.
Yep. And so I immediately thought of, these animal attack movies that sci-fi makes and all this stuff. They're really cheesy. The effects are bad. They're on purpose, like kind of self-aware, thanks to stuff like Sharknado. Slaughterhouse is actually a really well-made movie. It looks great. It sounds great. The acting is great. But most importantly, the sloth puppet is great.
That's
It is
awesome.
so good. It's a totally a puppet, and it's just you it's enough to where you believe what's happening, but also you're like, puppet. So you basically it's a puppet animal slasher movie. So good. It is really seriously good. The pacing is wonderful. The premise doesn't wear itself out, and everything it does is ridiculous. Like you're like, okay, Slaughterhouse, this could be a short film. Why do I need to keep watching it? You won't be able to stop watching it. It's so much fun. It really is fun. I think you could show like um Lake Placid, Cocaine Bear, and Slaughterhouse. But Slaughterhouse would
Ooh.
have to be your like late night one. It would have to be the last one for like the diehards that are like really in. Um, but I love, yeah, I totally loved it. I would buy Slaughterhouse. I had no idea. It has no right to be as good as it is. It has no right whatsoever. I just don't want people to think that it's stupid
Yeah.
because it is not stupid. It doesn't, and when I say stupid, meaning like no one really tried and most of it's boring, uh, no, it's good. It
Mm.
really is good. And gory. Those three little feet. But the
Oh my
puppet,
gosh.
never got sick of seeing that puppet. Oh, it was so great. They really tried hard. That's the difference for me, is how hard did they really try to be a good movie? And yeah, it's the production quality is exceptional. So I watched that was another streaming rental. It was really good. So before we go, I do want to mention that well, Five Nights at Freddy's, the movie, is something that everybody in my periphery is interested in seeing. So we got our tickets right now to see that. Sam's shaking her head. No. What is it that you're most
I don't
interested?
know anything about it. Like I'm just not, I
It's a
don't
video game.
like,
It's a horror
I
video
know.
game
I
based
am
on
just
Chuck
like
E. Cheese and Showbiz Pizza, where the animatronics
come
are
to life.
possessed.
Yeah.
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 And you
Yeah.
must
Okay.
escape, right? Survive the night. Um, what are you looking forward to seeing in the remainder of our year?
Ooh, the whole year? I like have so many just in
Well, or just,
November.
like coming up, anything you're like, I got to make sure I go to the theater for that.
There are two in November that I am super excited about, and it's not the one that I'm gonna say that I'm mediocrely excited about.
Mediocrely?
Um, mediocrely.
Okay.
I made up a new word.
Okay.
Um, I am super excited about Next Goal Wins with Michael Fassbender. It's the Taika Waititi movie about the Samoan soccer team that he goes to coach, and it looks great. It's
Okay.
a comedy. It looks go like if you think back to Hunt for the Wilder People and like that kind of comedy from like way back in his early days, it looks like that. And I am super excited about Next Goal Wins.
Okay. Next goal wins. Okay. I wasn't exactly sure what the name. I'm a Taika Waititi fan. I enjoy all of his stuff, and I really think he's hilarious. And so, uh, I'm in to watch it.
Yeah.
Definitely. What else are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to Dream Scenario with
What is
Nick
Dream
Cage
Scenario?
with Nick Cage,
Okay.
where he starts showing up in people's dreams in the city that he lives in, and he like all these people see him in their nightmares, and so he has to like figure out how to like navigate life with now being like this popular person in people's nightmares.
I saw the
It
trailer for this. This is the one where he's not wearing his toupee. Yeah, he's
correct.
bald because he has
Yes.
his bald.
Yes. It looks good too.
Yeah. Cage is it's
He's come
interesting.
into his prime.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell the movies he did to pay his taxes and the ones he did because he was genuinely interested in the material. And Pig was one of those. I think Mandy might have been one of those. Uh, this, yeah, I'm super interested.
Yeah.
Just the idea of him going there without his hairpiece,
Hmm.
I
I
think
have my tickets to the Marvels already, so I'm excited for that one.
that was what I was gonna say, man.
Yep.
Tell about Marvels. I have
I
watched Captain Marvel almost as many times as I've watched Black Panther. It's a
Yeah,
just a blast. And hey, maybe they'll put Blockbuster in the Marvels. Who knows?
maybe. And then there's a movie called The Holdovers with Paul Giamatti, where
Uh,
like um I think it's like a period piece, but like it's kind of like supposed to be a comedy about him as a professor and like the kids that don't go home for the holidays at college and are stuck on campus and stuff.
okay.
And so it looks like it might be a lot of fun too.
All right. Yeah, I'm nothing really kind of springs to mind other than the Marvels, but I'm just hoping that we get Poor Things before the end of the year with Emma Stone
Yes.
because Yorgos Lanthimos is one of my favorite directors, and everything they've done has just been so wild. And Poor Things looks like, there's always that one bizarre movie that you're like, maybe this will actually get some attention the way that Everything Everywhere All at Once did last year.
Hmm.
Some of my similar hopes are wrapped up in Poor Things, while not on the same scale because Michelle Yeoh, as far as I know, is not in it. But still, that's really kind of what the rest of the year is looking like for me. Uh, as far as trick or treating goes, if you show up to my door wearing your Blockbuster costume, I'm going to then test your movie knowledge from the 1990s.
Yes. Yes.
The correct answer is Can't Hardly Wait.